Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Maria Gonçalves podcast. I am your host, Maria, and today we have a special guest. We have Erica McNiece. So, welcome, Erica.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So, one of the cool things about Erica is she is an evidential medium and she is a local girl. She is a Canadian girl.
I am.
I love that. So let me just read a little bit about Erica so you guys get to know her a little bit. So, Erica is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, past life regressionist, and an evidential medium. So, I can't wait to take a deep dive into that because that's always so fascinating. So, Erica is an evidential medium whose lifelong connection to spirit began in childhood through a vivid conscious encounter with a loved one who had passed away. Trained in traditional evidential mediumship, she is known for delivering clear, compassionate, and confirmable details to her clients that bring comfort, healing, and a sense of connection to those in spirit. I so agree with this. I really believe mediumship readings are for healing when we bring through the evidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And then, as a certified clinical hypnotherapist and past life regressionist, Erica blends therapeutic skill with spiritual insight to help clients access deeper soul memory and understand the ongoing journey of the soul across many lives. Oh, we have to do a deep dive into that because I need to understand that more. Her work
Absolutely.
supports individuals in releasing old patterns and gaining clarity about their evolution across time and the threads that shape their life's journey. Grounded, warm, and devoted to her clients' growth, Erica's approaches every session with sincerity, reminding us that the soul story continues far beyond a single lifetime. Oh, I just got chills. Say that. And that our loved ones remain close even after their bodies have transitioned to spirit. So my question is, past life past life regressionist, because I'm so curious, how do you get into that? Because I don't know a lot of evidential mediums that are like, yeah, let's go into multiple lives. Like, how did you get into that?
So it's funny. That's always the number one question people ask me when they find out that I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. They don't care that I can like help them get over anxiety. They want to know about their past lives. And to be honest with you, when I first started studying, I studied because I was really interested in what happens in I've always believed that our soul is greater than one lifetime. I just have always sort of had that sense, even since childhood. I always knew that things felt more familiar than only this lifetime. And so the more reading that I did, um, the more I sort of had confirmation about that. And I'm sure that a lot of folks have in passing probably heard of Dr. Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And
Yes.
so that was my first foray into it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to know more. And so I started studying more, and I fell into doing research about Dr. Michael Newton and his research in looking at our experience through hypnosis in our ability to access other lifetimes through hypnosis. And so I thought to myself, well, as an evidential medium, I know that when I'm speaking to someone, they are disembodied. I know they have to be somewhere. You can call it wherever you want to
Yeah.
call it, heaven, interplace. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But I knew that that was taking place. So my real curiosity was, what is happening in that time where we are no longer in our body, but we're sort of preparing? And so I and a lot of folks that write about it would consider that our life between lives. And so
Yeah.
I was really interested in that. And the more I researched, the more I was directed to the Michael Newton Institute, who did a lot of the research around that. And I thought, well, I want to go to the Michael Newton Institute. But I had to be a clinical hypnotherapist for a while before I could do that. So when I did my research, I came upon a woman, Bryn Blankenship, who is an incredible hypnotherapist, but also just an amazing woman, spiritually grounded, and it really
Yeah.
aligned with what I wanted to do. So I started studying, and I had to do my clinical hypnotherapy, which I still do. I do have awesome clients. But it's turned out that my practice really, between the mediumship, really supports a lot of people that are interested in what happened in their past lives and the impact it has now on this life. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, going through the Hypno Regression Institute and doing my studying, I was like, okay, this is definitely where I should be. But I come from like I'm a bit of a nerd. I did a lot of schooling. I was a secondary school teacher for 16 years. So I just love studying. So once I find something that I really love, I just sort of like deep dive. And in this case, the world of spirit and the world of past lives sort of mingled. And that's how I ended up where I did. So I don't know. I think they
Oh,
married together pretty good.
I think that's awesome. I didn't know you were a school teacher. That's really cool to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think being I used to think, so I had my dream job before I left. I worked in a very high risk school, students that were expelled, gang members, drug dealers, this sort of stuff, kids that really basically had to be there. But I just thought I was just really good at relating to the kids. And this was before I formally studied mediumship. And what I recognized was I was actually just using all of the intuitive gifts, the psychic gifts to do what I was doing. And that just made me a good teacher. I just thought I was just a good teacher, but it was actually that I was using my skills before I even knew I had them. So, yeah.
And I'll add, you probably were a very good teacher, or you wouldn't have lasted 16 years. Let's be honest here.
Well, word on the street is that I was a pretty good teacher. So I'll take it. I'll take it from other people.
I used to be a Montessori preschool teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Probably why I'm so animated. Yay!
Actually, my very first teaching placement ever before I even went, like, knew I wanted to be a teacher, I worked at a Montessori and I loved it. And I still believe in it.
Oh, I love Montessori. I think it's good for kids. Uh, so you know what? You got me thinking because I do wonder about this sometimes, and I know what we learn in mediumship, but I think it's like the testing of your own personal faith because you're talking about like the past lives and the in between. So I always wonder because like as you know, my dad passed away. It was just the 1 year anniversary in October. And I always have the thought every once in a while, it's like, where is he? Like, where exactly? Like, I know the Catholic thing, like, you're going to heaven. The spiritual thing is we're all connected, we're all one. But my mind's still like, where is he? Is he at a coffee shop? Like, is he in his hometown hanging out in Portugal? Is he on the farm? Is he laying down by the beach, by the ocean? Because I always wonder, like, where where do they go in the in between, Erica? Like, do you know?
Do I know? Well, I can
That
only
was a big
go based
question.
on it's a super huge question. And I think it's interesting that the first sort of thing that you fall back on is a lot of times the framework for what we understand happens after we pass away is
Yeah.
rooted in what we sort of understood the universe to be when we were young. So in my case, in your case, we were raised Roman Catholic. So
Yeah.
we have a sense of like what we think purgatory is or heaven is. And my experience with clients has really been, and not just my experience with clients, but there is a huge body of research that really looks at, particularly through hypnosis, when a person is in a state of hypnosis and we facilitate them accessing what I refer to now as our life between lives.
Yeah.
What I have come to believe or understand is that when our soul transitions, we return back to whatever you want to call it, source, God, the universe.
Yeah.
When that takes place, there are a few things that happen. The first thing that happens is we return back to what the source of our soul was, and we have a full understanding of the life we just led. So it's sort of like you now have the huge panoramic vision, understanding of all of the things that you did well, that you didn't do well. Because when we come here with certain intentions for our soul's growth.
Yeah.
And when our soul is growing on earth, this is sort of like the petri dish that can only be replicated when we're in on earth, right? We have hard surfaces, we are three-dimensional, and if we came to this life with the understanding of what we were meant to do, we wouldn't actually learn the lesson, right? We'd just be like, okay, I got to do what I got to do. So when we transition back to source, we gain an understanding there of what our purpose was originally. It's sort of like we go, oh yeah, that's right. Let me reread the notes that I had before I went. And
Yeah.
then we also can see what we did well and what we didn't do. But the way I describe it to people is, there is what I believe to be a difference between what our soul is and what our spirit is. And if you can imagine it like an orange, individual slices of that orange are the different lives that we lead. But we're always the orange. And that orange always exists in that place of our life between lives or source or whatever that is. So if your dad loved being at the beach, your dad can access the beach at any time he wants to. And what I've come to realize also is that through mediumship, as well as in the hypnotic state, there are things from Earth we really liked and we really loved and meant a lot to us. And so if we want to access that, we can access it at any time, exactly the same way as a medium can say, I always say, I'm not interrupting your loved one when I decide to connect with them. They sort of knew, they got the appointment reminder that you were going to be sitting in front of me. So you're not interrupting them from the beach when you decide to sit down and you say, hey, Dad, I really hope that you show up for that reading. But
Yeah.
because they can be one place and every place at the same time, they can do whatever they want to do and they can be
Yeah.
wherever they want to be. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think my experience through regressing people has been that where our soul goes is so infinite that the beauty that comes from that allows us to access our full understanding of what it is to be a soul.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really like, I never thought of it as, hey, Dad, you're at the beach. I'm making an appointment because I'm going to go see a medium. Make sure you show up.
Yeah. And I mean, we know, right, as mediums, we know that when a person sits in front of us, they may or may not get the person that they're hoping for in the reading, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're hoping you're going to speak to Dad, and the next thing you know, your old boss shows up. But it's because when our loved ones are in spirit or they're in our life between lives, they also have an awareness of what our soul's needs and goals are. And so
Yeah.
they are working even when they're not with us on earth to facilitate our goal. Because before we incarnate, I have come to understand that we are part of a soul group. And I mean, we don't have enough time to go into the bits and pieces of that.
We
But
got some time. That's
okay,
why we're
well,
here.
so I when we are in our life between lives, those people that are part of our life that we hold the most dear are
Yeah.
part of what I call our soul group. And a lot of folks will see this in a lot of the current writings about soul evolution. And that core soul group is usually made of maybe 4 to 6 people. And they're the people that when you think of who's your soul group, there's like ping, ping, ping. We all know those people, right? They might be your
Yeah.
parents, they might not. They might be your partner, they might not. Might be your best friend. But we sort of create this soul agreement before we incarnate that I have goals for my soul's development. And this is what I need to do to be able to evolve as a soul. So when I incarnate into my lifetime, I am going to have certain things that I need to go through to facilitate that happening. And the rest of the people in your soul group go, okay, well, I guess I need to volunteer to help make that happen. So this time I need to be your dad, because there's only certain things I can help your soul evolve with if I'm your dad. Or I might need to be your daughter or your son. So we make those agreements before we incarnate. And what I think is the most beautiful thing is that when you think about your life, there are some people that have chosen to really be jerks or to make your life really hard. And you're not going to love them in this lifetime, right? But
Yes.
they chose, as in that moment in your life between lives, to create that soul contract to say, okay, you need a bad guy this time. And so I'm going to be your bad guy, because all of that development of that agreement took place in such a place of love that I'm willing to be the bad guy this time so that your soul can evolve. And while doing that, you're also helping my soul evolve. So it's always this reciprocal, beautiful relationship that's taking place. And that doesn't stop when we die, because those souls are still there with the center of the orange. Your orange and their orange are still there,
Yeah.
working on that. And so, I'll give you the example of my dad. My dad passed away. It'll be 3 years in February. My dad was the most incredible human being, but he also had his flaws, right? But my dad passed away 8 weeks before 102, and my dad was with it. Okay. He was very with it. And my dad was incredibly spiritually connected. And he had an understanding of the spirit world that I don't think he even knew how well he knew the spirit world before he transitioned.
Yeah.
But we had a plan. I was like, okay, Dad, when you go, we got to have a plan, because I know that you're going to be able to come back and be able to support me. And he didn't need me doing that in this lifetime. We probably already had that planned before I was even ever born. And he's still holding up his end of the bargain. So when you come to understand that, and I think through mediumship, we're able to offer a glimpse of that to our clients to say, okay, my role as an evidential medium is at its core just to confirm to you life after death. That's my goal, right? But when you understand that, you then understand that they've just transitioned. They just lost the flesh suit. They're still here in a capacity to help us and help us grow and to move and live with us. It doesn't take away the grief and the sadness of not physically having them. I don't think that ever goes away. But I think that being able to understand that they're never apart from us, to me, is very, very grounding. And it just makes being able to move through our grief and our life that much easier, I guess.
Yeah. That's interesting. I was just sitting here thinking like not past lives. Yeah, past lives and mediumship. And one of the questions I often get, and I find it hard to answer. I know what it is inside my head, but finding the right words is when someone's loved one dies tragic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough.
And the question is why? Like, why did that have to happen? So that would be part of their soul made an agreement in this lifetime. It's so like I've heard that so many times. I always have a hard time with those
Doesn't it
words.
kind of make you want to punch someone in the face? It makes me really angry. Like, and I, one of the closest people to me in my life, lost their dad very tragically, very suddenly when they were very young.
Yeah.
And it was, now as an adult, I see that never gets easier, right?
Yeah.
But and it's kind of cold consolation to say, their soul had a plan. You guys kind of planned this before you both incarnated. So it is cold comfort. But what I do recognize is there are certain things that this person needed to do in their life that, had their dad survived, probably would have never taken place. They would have never understood the resilience and finding that resilience within themselves, their life may have been significantly easier. And maybe they wouldn't have had to face some of the things their soul needed to do in this lifetime had that not happened. And
Mm.
so it doesn't take away the idea that a tragedy is a tragedy. It certainly is a tragedy. But when you stand away from that and you recognize that that person sacrificed their incarnation to have that happen because there were certain things that you were now going to be given an opportunity to do, to me, that's like the ultimate act of love, right? It doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away how sad it makes you. Um, and it certainly doesn't take away the trauma. I mean, you're living with the trauma of a traumatic death in your family or in your sphere forever. But I do still see it as like this ultimate act of love to say, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to
Yeah.
physically leave you, but I did this thing for you because
Yeah.
you and I both needed to do this.
You're
And
making me cry. I'm getting so emotional. I like it's the way you explain it, and I'm just gonna stop for a moment there. Uh because it's so heart-centered, and I know I've had the readings where it's like, well, why did this have to happen? And I always have a hard time explaining it, but I've never heard somebody explain it, articulate it as well as you, but
oh,
also to say it's the ultimate act of love. I
well,
was like, wow.
if I've learned anything about our regression back to our life between lives or in mediumship generally, it's
Yeah.
it's all rooted in love. The source of everything, the root of where we come from, is pure, unadulterated source love.
Yeah.
And everyone, I hope, has the ability to have access to that, even for like a tiny grain of sand moment in their life, to understand
Yeah.
what that is, you know? And I think we go through different things to understand that. Mothers understand that. The sacrifice that you go through, you know, just the moment of giving birth, you're literally dying to give birth to another person in that moment. Mothers feel like they're going to die when that takes place, but you're doing that from a place of birthing this person, and then the rest of it is like even more painful, right? Like from cradle to grave, every moment that you go through for the rest of your life is like, God, I love you so much that I have to XYZ. But we see that, and when we connect with that and we understand that at the ultimate source of whatever you call that spark of creation is
Yeah.
love, and you frame it like that, then you understand that even in tragedy, there are gifts that are given to us by our loved ones that you just cannot replicate in any other way.
Yeah. I actually interviewed someone a few weeks ago, and I remember the quote she says, but I'm trying to remember her name. I'll write it down. But her husband passed away. It was like three people in her family, her mother, her father, and her husband, all within 13 months. And sh- she had an episode, not an episode, sorry. She had a connection with her husband, and she's like, "Why did you have to die?" And he told her, "If I didn't pass away, you wouldn't have the soul growth and be doing the things that you're doing now and helping the people that you're helping now." So when
Absolutely.
you said that, it reminded me of that interview. I think the book was Whoever Dies First is is the lucky one or something like that. I can't remember. It was Karen. I'm trying to remember the guest, and I'm like, ah.
It'll be in the show notes.
It'll be in the show notes, her book, because you guys will love her interview too, because she's so raw and so real. And if you're listening to this, I apologize. I can't remember all the details right now. But yeah, she had said that. And then as you were talking about that, that clicked. And I'm like, yeah, I think the most powerful thing, everything you said is powerful, but the ultimate act of love, because I've never seen it through that lens, through that perspective. And that brings so much healing when you say it that way.
Yeah, our souls are always looking to evolve, no matter what the experience we're having. Because you have to remember that when we incarnate on Earth, this is like the thickest, hardest level of the video game,
Yeah.
right? Like it is the hardest one. And so in understanding that, it's like we've been placed in a, if you think about the expansion of the soul, when you pass away, your soul expands, you get to be everywhere all at once, right? But when
Yeah.
you're here, you're stuck in the four walls of planet Earth. And
Yeah.
our ability to do things is limited. And part of that works in our favor because we can't outrun it. But and the other part of that is that, you know, when a soul is able to do something for someone else, they're
Yeah.
going to jump at the chance to do that because
Yeah.
ultimately that's what we want. We want that understanding. And this is, you know, we see this pattern in so many religions, probably every religion around the world. But ultimately, what we're looking to do is be able to reach that ultimate awareness where we are as close to understanding and being source as we can be, right? You can call it
Yeah.
nirvana, you can call it heaven, you can call it euphoria, you can call it whatever you want. But we don't get there alone. That's what it is to be a soul and to be in connection. So, you know, going back to this idea of our soul family or our soul groups are there, but how amazing is it that we also have other groups outside of that, of people that maybe were your teacher in elementary school, that if they hadn't done this, they would have done that. And then you ended
Yeah.
up here to be able to do that. You know, we started off talking about how I was a high school teacher. Well, like I never intended to be a high school teacher. I started off in professional theater. I was working in directing. Like I worked in live theater. I thought that's what I was going to do forever. And then
Yeah.
the next thing you know, something changed. And I think everybody has that, right? As
Yeah.
they used to say, you change jobs 3 or 4 times. Well, I'm not even going to go through the list of the professions I've had. But all of those things I realize took place because I needed to get somewhere. And I took those skills with me in my backpack. My ability to be able to stand in front of a group doesn't come from being just good at it. It comes from 16 years in front of wily teenagers and being able to
Yeah.
handle any heckler I got, right? And so
Yeah.
that skill comes with me. Our souls are the same. So every experience we have, the interaction, it might just be that you have an interaction with someone that it completely changes their life and you never see that person again. And
Wow.
that's okay. But you just did something for another soul on earth. And I think
Yeah.
that's also why, especially nowadays in today's times, we see that all over the world, there is a lot of horrible stuff going on. And we wonder why people are feeling heavy. It's not just because of the economy, it's not just because of politics. When you think about the energy in the petri dish of earth that's going on, we're all
Mhm.
connected. We're not just connected up in heaven or in
Yeah.
our life between lives. We're connected here. It's like that, it's like an anthill. If you shake salt on the anthill, the ants are going to be like, hey, everybody, we got to run. Well, earth is the same thing. We're just an organism here trying to function. So when there are hard things happening to other souls on earth, yeah, you know what? You might feel depressed. You might not know why you feel depressed. Well, guess what? We're all connected. On a soul level, we're all connected. So that's why people are struggling and they don't know why they're struggling because there's a lot of struggle going on the planet. And you feel it.
Wow.
Even
Yeah.
if you don't know you're an empath, even if you're just, you know, Joe Smith walking down the street, we're all connected energetically. So it stands to reason that if you're leading with love and you're trying to help from love, then you're going to change the pattern a little bit, even if it's just that you're really nice to the kid bagging your groceries. To people, we don't bag groceries, we all bag our own groceries nowadays, but you know, if that happens. So
Unless you're at Fortino's, they still bag your groceries.
there you go.
Thank you very much.
I gotta switch over to Fortino's.
They beg them. You know what I was thinking of that old saying, God never gives you more than you can handle.
Yeah.
Like as you were talking. So how do you feel about that statement? Sometimes I'm
whenever
like,
I'm like, oh, thanks God for thinking that I can handle what I can handle. I really love tumbling from one trauma to another one. That's what my first reaction is to that sentence. Um, I
it's
mean, to
a
a certain
powerful
extent,
sentence.
it's a powerful sentence. It's a really
Yeah.
powerful sentence because I think what it does is it says to us, our souls are so much more powerful and greater than we could even imagine we are. And
Yeah.
so when you're given the opportunity, and I use that word, okay, let me preface this. When I graduated high school, I was voted two things. I was voted most likely to try everything once, which is probably true. And I was voted most pessimistic person in my graduating class. So
Oh,
I
wow.
always say that I am just a pessimist trying my best. So when I hear a sentence like, you know, God only gives you what you can handle, you know, my first reaction is like, I don't really want to be that strong. I don't want to have faced the things I face. And, you know, we spoke before the interview briefly about my mom, and my mom is going through a terminal cancer journey. And she is the toughest lady I have ever met. And she comes from my nonna, who was the toughest lady I have ever met. Two of the most kind, compassionate, incredible human beings. But they were handed really hard lives, really, really hard lives. So, you know, I can look at being handed really hard things, and I have been handed really hard things in my life. But I also can stand back and see where I've come from in being able to overcome them. And that didn't mean that it wasn't horribly painful and difficult and traumatic. You know, that doesn't mean that there weren't days where the anxiety and the trauma through my body didn't allow me to get up and do anything other than throw up because my body was, you know, was against me. I personally have been through really horrible health issues, but I'm here. And on the other side of that, I would have never imagined I could have been on the other side. And
Yeah.
so our souls understand when we look at being handed things that are difficult, we can't ever understand what it will be to be on the other side of it. It's only when we come out the other side and we realize our strength on the other side of that that I can say, okay, like I lived through that. I survived that. And now I know what my strength is. I know how strong I am. I know how what I can get through because in those moments I had two choices. I had the choice to
Yeah.
opt out. And as a medium, you know, sometimes we talk about that people choose to opt out of this lifetime. And that too is a soul choice. And sometimes it's just too much. But when you get to the other side of that, you do recognize that if someone had ever told you that you were going to have to go through that, you'd be like, I'm not going to make it. And then you make it. And that
Yeah.
builds that fortitude of your soul. It's another one of the little check boxes on the list of like, what did I come here to do? Oh,
Yeah.
really didn't want to have to go through that, but I did it. And I will have an understanding. I will have the bird's eye view of why that had to happen to me when I transition. And I'll go, oh, I didn't do too bad of a job. And when I'm standing there in front of the people that kind of tell me how good a job I did, they'll go, you could have done a little better on that.
Yeah. I like that. I find sometimes I will look at my life because I've had so many challenges and I'm like, I don't even know how I survived that year. But I did it and I wouldn't change it. This is the wild part. I'm like, I wouldn't change it.
I know,
But
right?
when you're in it, you're like, please get that soul contract. Let's amend it. Let's fix some things. I want out.
Yes, I want out. Please, somebody, can someone check the name on that soul contract? Because it cannot be mine.
But then when you're on the other side, you're like, oh, if I didn't have that experience, the resilience, the knowledge, the love, the compassion, the forgiveness, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I
Yeah,
think we forget that. We get caught up in the pain and it's like, just take a step back and look how far you've come and you're still here.
I think about how in mediumship, um, when spirit chooses us to be the communicator for them,
Yeah.
I think about an analogy that was given to me that you can have four mediums in a room and one person that wants to communicate. And that one person that wants to communicate in spirit is going to pick the person that they feel can communicate their message the best. And the only reason they can do that is because they know on a soul level, hey, you know what? Erica was the one that took care of her dad. And she understands that I want to talk to my daughter and I want to tell her about how much I appreciate that she took care of me. Right?
Yeah.
Those three other mediums may never have had that experience. And so that dad in spirit is going to choose me to communicate to their daughter because I'm going to be able to understand exactly what that daughter went through. And he's going to be able to give me the information more efficiently, more specifically.
Yeah.
And so when you think about all of the struggles that people go through, I often think to myself, on a good day, I think to myself, how lucky am I that I got all of this information just put into my library. That now I'm going to be able to do my job in a better way because I'm going to have the compassion and the understanding for the person that's sitting in front of me. And it doesn't need to be a mediumship reading, or they don't need to be here for hypnosis. I
Yeah.
can just stand in the line. I'm going to give you, do I have time to give you a little example of
We
this?
got time. We got time.
So this summer I was at a concert and, there were two of us, and then there was another couple down the way, right next to my partner that I was with.
Yeah.
And the song started and the band said, usually this song in a certain way, but when I wrote it because I lost a member of my family. And I lost someone close to me. And so tonight I'm going to choose to do it on the piano. And you're all going to know the words to the song. Please sing along. And in that moment, the entire arena was singing. And every one of those people, it's one of those moments where you're like, well, I'm glad, and I'm not so glad that I'm an empath, right? Because everyone is singing, and you know that they are singing that song for the person that they lost. I'm going to cry.
You're making me cry. Oh my goodness. Tissue.
They're singing their hearts out because
Yeah.
they understand the feeling of that loss. And I look over and I can see the girl, one person down from me, crying. And I put my hand out to this stranger and I looked at her and I just went, I get it. And
Yeah.
and she's like, I get it. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know who you're mourning. They might even be
Yeah.
alive. This might be a person that just, I don't know. But what I do
Yeah.
know is that we understand loss.
Oh, we
Yeah.
get it.
Right. And so
Yes.
the song was done and she kind of pushed my partner out of the way and she didn't say anything. And she goes, it's loud, right? So she says, can I hug you? And
Oh,
she hugs me, and it was like one of the best hugs I've ever had. And it was a
oh,
total stranger, and it was a long hug. And I was like, man, this person gets it. And we don't even know what we're getting from each other, right? But this
yeah.
person gets it. And I nodded, and she went back to her seat, and they played a couple more songs, and they left before the show even finished. I didn't get to say, hey, thing. I now
Yeah.
think she was a total stranger in a moment where,
Yeah.
going back to the soul thing, that soul recognized another soul in the big picture of things and was like, this person needs a moment. And we
Wow.
had the moment and she left. And now I'm recounting the story. And maybe somewhere she recounts the story and says, man, I just had someone heal a tiny sliver of me because she got it. Right.
Yeah.
And the people we were with were just sort of like do singing. Like they weren't, not that they didn't have loss, they had loss, but it was just an understanding of the depth of that.
Yeah. I think it's so powerful. I also think, and it depends, like use the word that you're comfortable with, but God places you where you need to be. Because
Oh,
don't you ever
absolutely.
wonder, like all of a sudden you're somewhere, you're like, that was such a random conversation, but
Yes.
they needed to be heard. And then you end up hugging, oh my goodness, how many random strangers have I hugged? And I remember my son and my daughter when they're with me, they're like, Mom, why are people telling you your life story? You're in the grocery line. And I'm like, but I actually genuinely interested. Like I just find people fascinating.
Me too. And I think, okay, so this is my theory about mediumship. I think that a lot of mediums, I mean, we come to mediumship for different reasons, but
Yeah.
to me, the best part about mediumship is like being in the grocery line and you get to meet really interesting people. So when I'm
Yeah.
channeling a loved one, oftentimes I'm like, man, I always thank my sitter, like, thank you for letting me spend time with this person because they were awesome. Not to
Yeah.
say that we don't channel some people where you're like, I probably would not want to know you in real life, right? We do have those, to be
Yeah.
completely candid. But I love it. And it always reminds me of, I once saw on social media that in some country, they have like a human library where people will show up and you can just go and sit like with a Tibetan monk and talk to him for a bit, or like whoever. And these people volunteer to be the person. So they're like the human book and you get to just like talk to them. And I love that. I just think that
Yeah.
I just love, I'm actually like, people would think I'm an extrovert and I'm kind of not. Like, I'm probably an introvert, but I just present as an extrovert. But I find people so interesting. And
Yeah.
it goes back to, I think, when I was in my undergrad, I studied behavioral psychology. I actually studied criminology because I was always interested in that aspect of people's behavior. But I'm fascinated by people's behavior and what motivates them to do things. And I
Yeah.
think that having the perspective of like our souls, now that I have that in the situation I'm in, adds that extra layer of fascination to someone.
Yeah.
Wow, really? You know, I love a person with a cool story.
I love it. Like after the passing of my dad, because he's buried at the cemetery, I go there all the time. And people be like, but you're a medium. What are you even doing there?
Like the last place I'm gonna find someone actually is what I say to people.
But you know what? Like, I started going, there's a community there. You meet the families and you meet, and you hear the stories. And there's like this young guy that's buried next to my dad. And every once in a while, I see the mom bring the little boy to see his daddy. And you'll see him, hi, daddy. And here's my picture this week. And it's so beautiful to see that continuation of love
Yeah.
and to hear the stories of their lives and meet the families and all of that. And I think it's just so precious. So people, don't be scared of cemeteries. Go.
Oh, don't be scared of cemeteries. They're great place. I feel like cemeteries are like the most peaceful, lovely places on earth, really.
You meet the most beautiful people there and you hear their stories and they light up when they share the story of their loved one that's buried at the cemetery. And you get to
Absolutely.
know it's almost like there's another, I don't know if you call it a soul family, but there's like a community there.
Yeah.
We
And
have a
again,
community
I don't
there.
think anything is by accident. I don't think
No.
we meet anyone by accident. I think that everything is out of design. That
Yeah.
doesn't take away free will. We always have free will. So I don't want people to think, oh, I have a soul contract and now I'm stuck. You always have free will, right? What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have to come back and do it again. Like, which for me, I'm like, oh God, please don't. But what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have to come back again. And, it's funny you talk about the cemeteries, but I think about my mother-in-law, the area that my mother-in-law is buried, she's buried right next to another lady. And so my father-in-law, when he goes to tend the grave, he has met the other husband. And so they've
Yeah.
gotten to bond and they're both going to be buried in the same place. So their whole thing is they'll go for coffee and be like, this is great because now at least I know who I'm going to share eternity with. And so
Yeah.
this gentleman now he's ill. And my
Yeah.
father-in-law has said, don't worry, I got it. I'll take care of the place until I can't take care of the place. How nice is
Yeah.
that, right?
Oh, we do that there. Like I will go and I will go water other people's flowers, like because I'm like, well, their flowers look like they need some extra water, and I'm here,
Yeah.
and let me clean up and get rid of some debris or leaves because it's fall and leaves are there, and I'll clean it up. But everybody does that for everybody, and they keep the space clean. So if I'm walking around the cemetery and I see some stuff is knocked over because it was like a really windy evening the night before, I'll go straighten it out. But I find like everybody is the caretaker for everybody. It's not like this is mine, I don't care about you. It's like, no, this is mine, but I care about everybody here too.
And how beautiful is that, that we have that reverence for the fact that we were here for a little while. And
Yeah.
everybody, it's the unifying thing, right? Death is the unifying common denominator. We're all going to die. And
Yeah.
so, when you encounter people that get that and are willing to just give a little bit of their time, whether it be in the cemetery or in a hospice or something like that, where you
Yeah.
recognize that like we have this in common, and this was a crazy amazing thing for however long you're alive. That was an amazing thing. The chances, that's like statistical chances of being here are
Yeah.
so crazy. And that we can have a moment to recognize in another person, like, yep, that's going to be me one day. And so I'm going to do my best here now while I can for somebody else because I get it,
Yeah.
compassion.
I think it's I think it's amazing. I love this conversation. I love how deep we've gone, and I love how you talk about the past life, and you've just uh broken it down so much, because I know in the past when I've talked about past lives with other people, it always seemed like something like out there. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you have your past lives out there, but I love that you're a medium and you can bring it together. So I'm going to apologize. I can hear my doggy. Someone let him down. You can hear him scratching at the door. I'm not letting you in, Romeo. You'll have to wait and be patient. But I love that you did that. So before we go, I want to talk about your childhood. How did you become a medium? Because we know how you got into past lives. So thank you for that, because I know there's so much curiosity about it, but there's also so much misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And I love the way you broke it down and reminded us it's all about love. So for mediumship, what's that all about? How did that
What
happen to
is
you,
all that
Erica?
about? What is all that about? My mediumship journey, in short, was like kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
I am not the poster child for hey, become a medium. When I was about 8 years old, I should back up. As a child, I was always really aware, even when I was by myself. And I always say I was an only child because there was a big age gap between myself and my siblings.
Yeah.
But I had an imaginary friend. I think I was always sort of talking to somebody that was there. I was
Yeah.
always really aware of the fact that even when I was alone, I wasn't alone. And that
Yeah.
didn't bother me until it did. But when I was about 8 years old, my uncle Frank passed away. And I adored my Uncle Frank. And I remember we were sitting in the funeral home, and my awareness was caught by the candles that were on the side of the casket. And I always joke that because I was raised by an Italian mom, and my dad was not Italian, but was also very spiritually aware, I always say we're culturally superstitious and then also religious. Like it goes hand in hand. And so as a little kid, I was sitting there in the pew looking at the flames, and I started talking to my Uncle Frank. And I was like, can you flicker the candle if you can hear me? And it sort of started like that. That's how I started talking. And I was like, wow, when I say something, it will, it'll react. And years later, many years later, I was coming home from university, and I had a friend who passed away at his own hand. And we had planted a tree, memorial tree for him. And I drove up to the tree late at night just to be like, hey, like, we miss you. And the radio was off in my car. And I got out of the car, went to the tree, said a prayer, spoke to him for a bit. And as I was getting back to the car, the radio turned on and it was Tom Petty. And Tom Petty, we played Tom Petty at his funeral, and he was a big Tom Petty fan. And I was like, oh my God, can you hear me? And the radio turned off. I'm like, no, stop messing with me. Can you hear me? And the radio turned back on. And I was like, we're done. Now dead people can hear me. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And growing up, I had been in places that had a lot of spirit activity. And I could physically feel spirit, but to me, it was terrifying. Like, if you can imagine years of like the feeling of I have to get up the basement stairs fast, but being in all kinds of different spaces, that's how I felt about it. And so I was aware. And then a few years into, I lived in a house, or my future husband had bought a house when we were in university. And when I was in the back room, that was like the guest room, and that was where I preferred to sleep. I would have these terrible physical reactions, feeling like I was suffocating. And I spoke to the neighbor, and the neighbor told me, actually, right under the back window, one of the kids had locked themselves in a freezer that had been put out there and passed away. And this kept happening to me. So I was in university, it happened to me. In grad school, I had an event happen to me, big events. And then finally, I was in my last few years of teaching, and I turned to a colleague of mine out of nowhere. We were just marking exams, and I said, do you have a grandfather that passed away from a heart attack? And she just turned to me, she's like, yeah. And I said, he wants to talk about, he's showing me the red wagon, that he used to pull you in a red wagon. And she's like, what are you talking about? Yes. And like, he just wants to thank you and remind you that he's the one that keeps trying to get a hold of you. And I don't even think, honestly, Maria, I don't even think I was in my own body when I channeled this man, because I don't remember how I did it, what I did. Like, she just was like, and I was like, okay. And I gave the message, and she looked at me and she's like, how did you just do that? And I said, I have absolutely no idea. She's like, how did you know that? I said, I have no idea. I didn't know. So I knew from an early age, I had premonitions about things, and I would tell my mom and it would freak her out. But I just didn't see the thread connecting all of these things. And then finally, there was a magazine article, local magazine had an article about a medium who was going to start teaching classes. And I got gifted a month's worth of classes. And when I was gifted, it was basically like, you got to go to this because you got to sort out what's happening to you, because you can't keep living like this. And I didn't really think it was bothering other people, but it obviously was bothering other people, because they were like, you got to deal with this. And so that was it. And so that was probably it was over 10 years ago. I can't really tell you when. And that's when I started formally training. And then I've had like an on and off relationship with it until probably the last 5 years, where I was like, okay, I need to actually truly develop. I wasn't happy with the way I was developing. For a lot of the people that watch or listen, they would know that some people function within the idea of symbols. And I didn't really like that. It didn't feel like I was serving spirit the right way. And so when I found tutors that worked for me, I completely threw everything out and started rebuilding.
Yeah.
This is history. That's a really long answer to your story, or to your question, but that's.
No, the question was, how'd you become a medium? That was a big, I would hope it's longer than 60 seconds. But you know what? Like, as you're talking, I know for myself in the beginning of my mediumship, like I found like the checklist, and I really tried for a year to fit into that style of mediumship, and I couldn't do it. So I think the takeaway for those that are listening is find your style, because we all
Absolutely.
have a different style, and it doesn't work for one and it's fantastic for another, and just honor what feels right for you in your heart and know it's
Absolutely.
okay.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think that is definitely a takeaway for sure of any kind of mediumship journey, is
Yeah.
first off, don't feel badly when when you leave certain tutors. You know, we have certain people for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. You know, and in mediumship is the same thing. You have to find people that really echo how you want to learn. And as a former teacher, that's the most important. Find someone who understands how you work with your mediumship, and then find out what parameters work for you.
Yeah.
I am an evidential mediumship. I've been traditionally trained that way. On a good day, I probably check all of the evidential mediumship, report card. On a different day, depending on who the person is that's sitting in front of me and who I'm channeling, my mediumship might not meet all of those requirements, and I might get a slap on the wrist for the way I'm reading if someone was actually evaluating me. But you know, what I've come to realize is the people that are meant to sit in front of you, either as a client or even in an exchange like this, are the people that are they're meant to. And so
Yeah.
you will find the people you need as you need them. They'll come up on your journey.
Oh, I like that. I like that you said that because I think that's super important. And one of the things I love to do is go watch different mediums, and not all British trained mediums. Like I like I love all walks of life because it's like, oh, that's so cool how they did that.
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
keeping your mind open to so many possibilities is healthy.
Don't you love watching a medium work? I'm the same. I love watching other mediums work, and
Yeah.
like baby, newborn mediums to people that have been doing it their whole lives. But my favorite thing about watching a medium is going, how did they get that? Like I love the mechanics of mediumship. What is that person's particular skill that they were able to get that piece of information the way they did? Because every medium is different. Every
Yeah.
way you function within mediumship is going to be different. And so, for me, my entire life, probably from the cradle, I've been very deeply clairvoyant.
Yeah.
Not everybody is. So when people get something, like when they get audio, or I love when a person's like, I could taste that cigar. And I'm like, could you? That's cool. Like, that's awesome. That never happens to me. I rejoice in it, because really, I do believe that mediumship has been with us for eternity, right? We have had this
Oh,
ability since
absolutely.
the beginning of humankind. But
Yeah.
how we retrieve that information and share it is as unique as the individuals doing it. And
Yeah.
I think that the more that we can celebrate people doing it and hold a strict standard, because we all know that there is space for charlatanism in this
Yeah.
profession. When you hold people to a high standard and you see people excel at it, I think that it does amazing things, because ultimately the goal is for us to remember we're we're just never disconnected from our loved ones. We're not.
Yeah.
It does not happen. And so the more that we can remember that, I think the easier it makes life here.
Yeah. I know my favorite part of watching the mediumship demonstrations from different mediums is not so much the mechanics. I think in the beginning I was really into it, and now my favorite part is that moment in time where the person receiving the reading, that aha, like, oh my God, it's real. Like
Yeah.
last night, I went to see Sean Leonard, and there was a guy in the audience. He's a few seats ahead of us, me and my friend. And Sean, I think it was his dad that he brought through, and he kept doing one of these, like, like what? Like, how is this even possible? And you could see the expression, and he was with his whole family. Those are my favorite moments of, oh my God, this is real. Oh my God, the medium actually has my dad in this moment. And for
Oh
us
yeah.
to be, I think it's such a privilege as audience members. Like, it's great if you receive a reading. I think it's fantastic because I would love a reading. But when I go there, I go to watch the miracle because there's this aha moment when people are like, oh my God, you have my mom, or you have my baby that I lost and is in the spirit world. Like that moment of that miracle happens.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of mediumship is that. And it's like, what is it? Like, it's only a couple
It's
of
a split
seconds.
second. It's a split
Yeah.
second. And I actually, I was with you when that one of those moments happened to me. I
Yeah.
don't know that you knew that it was happening to me, but um, I always joke that I am the most skeptical medium on the planet. And I say that because I hold a really hard standard for myself. I want to be able to produce information like that makes that miracle moment.
Yeah.
But I had a miracle moment, and I would say it was the biggest. I'm sure I've probably had others, but it's the one that stands out to me. And it was a couple of years ago, maybe last year. And I received a reading, a public reading. And
Yeah.
the person that came through was actually the person who I was telling you about the tree that turned the radio on. And
Yeah.
I believe that he has been an instrumental part of my spirit journey always. And when we met in high school, I wouldn't have ever been able to tell you that, right? Going back to the
Yeah.
beginning of our relationship, you don't know who is who until they make a
Yeah.
choice to interact with your soul. And my miracle moment didn't come from the medium. She gave me a very solid reading, but I sat down, I was sitting in my spot, and the moment it crossed my mind, I was like, you know what, maybe I just stole someone's reading. I always feel guilty when I get a reading because I feel like there are other people that don't get. I get readings. I get readings from my reading circle all the time, right? So
Yeah.
she gave me a reading, and for a split second, it crossed my mind, and I thought, did I just steal that reading from someone? Was it my loved one? Was it my person? And then I thought, was it you? And as soon as I thought, was it you? I just happened to look down at the person that was sitting in front of me. And their sweater was open, and I could see the tag on the back of their sweater. And
Yeah.
the tag on the back of their sweater had my friend's last name on the back of the sweater. And his last name was exceptionally rare. I've
Yeah.
never seen it before. I will probably never see it again. And it was on the tag of the back of this woman's sweater. And I think I probably made the entire row that I was like, oh my God, out loud, because I was so caught off guard. And I thought to
Yeah.
myself, there is, there's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way statistically, again, skeptic, statistically, that's impossible. That's nearly impossible. It's now 100% possible because I've just had it happen, but
Yeah.
that's incredible. And to me, I was like, it changed my own mediumship because I was like, I do that for people. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we forget we do that, right? You can have a
Yeah.
couple of clients in a day and you can give really good readings, and that person can walk away and feel healed in whatever way you can help them do that.
Yeah.
But sometimes we lose sight of how incredible it is that we just happen to be really good at tuning the radio, right?
Yeah.
The more we practice, the better we are at tuning the radio. And I always say to people that sit in front of me, you don't need me. Like, just talk to your loved one. You do not need a medium. I wish wasn't necessary, that people could just talk to their loved ones all the time and recognize our loved ones are openly talking to us all the time.
Well, I feel like every single person is a medium. I always say this. Every single person is a medium because when you can connect to your loved ones, everybody will be like after passing their loved one, oh, I just knew it was them. I felt them in the room. I got a sign. They open close the lights. Um, like I just know they're around me. And you'll hear that every person I've ever met. It's like I can feel my loved ones. But then to do professional readings for other people. Now that's a skill and that's a desire that needs to be in your heart. And not everybody has that desire to be in their heart. And I really encourage training.
Yes,
And,
please.
and the reason I encourage training is because when you're going through stuff, kind of like Eric and I are talking, it's like if something happens, you can share with your group and be like, oh, I just had this moment. Did you have this moment? Like, is this normal? Is this my imagination? Am I being a skeptic? Is it real? but you have that community that loves and supports you. But I think too, it's like anything. You want to go off, be a doctor, you're going to meet all your doctor friends and you're going to study. You want to be a teacher, meet all your teacher friends. So the desire has to be there. And then the training is important too, like it is in every single profession.
Training is only going to bring you so far. And in my
Yeah.
mediumship journey, that was a point that was really a point of struggle. I look back on, you know, I definitely don't have any regrets in my life. And I say that with confidence, but I do look back and think to myself, because I lack, and I will be totally transparent. Like I lacked and lack the confidence in my mediumship a lot. And I will
Yeah.
have people tell me, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could give a reading like you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I wish I could give a reading like you." Like I look at other mediums and I think to myself, "Oh, I wish I could take that little piece of that person's reading and that person's reading and so on and so forth." But you're never really going to know your style. That's why I always say I'm always a developing medium. When people ask
Yeah.
me, I always say I'm a developing medium because I feel like I'm going to be developing my whole life. Some things might get easier in the way I read, but it's always going to be an evolution. And I didn't realize that I mean, I think I always realize this, but you have to practice. You can't go do a reading and then like take 3 months off and then be mad at yourself because you don't give a good reading. You have to practice. And so I think, like you said, finding people that you can practice with and that you feel comfortable with and that you can fail around. Like, my favorite playwright, Samuel Beckett, fail, but fail better the next time. I want to fail better the next time. And when I'm in my development circle, I'm so grateful that I have space to be able to be like, I'm going to try this out. And
Yeah.
if it fails, I have confidence that someone is going to say, maybe what you may wanted to have tried in that moment is X. And I'm
Mhm.
grateful for that because I might try it out and it might not work, and I might try it and it might work. But being around colleagues that can give me that feedback and knowing that it's coming from a good place in my development is like so, I mean, it's priceless, absolutely priceless. I'm so grateful. Shout out to my development circle.
I think it's good. I think too, like as you were talking, when it feels like you've outgrown training, be
Mm.
okay with that. Because I noticed when I outgrew it and I would get comments and I was just like, what's wrong with you? Like it doesn't feel right for me anymore. So I think it's important because of what you said, it's just be you, figure it out. And I think too, it's a confidence muscle building and that happens over time. So for those of you guys that are listening, just be kind to yourselves.
Yeah, and
Figuring
just
it out.
trust the process.
Yeah.
I mean, the the relationship that's never going to leave you. I believe very firmly um, that when we're born, that soul family is with us, and that soul group can also include, a lot of people call it their spirit team, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. But you've never ever ever been alone, and sometimes mediumship can make you feel very alone, but recognizing that it's so much bigger than you, that there are people on the other side that are supporting you and offering up opportunities for you to continue to develop on your journey. And there's no shame in realizing that maybe you've trained with someone for a while and you don't jive with them anymore. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. I'm not suggesting that you just like, do a class here, do a class there. Maybe that fits you, maybe it doesn't. But your mediumship is always going to be an evolving thing. And you need to be a bit selfish about what you need when you need it, and to find the
Yes.
proper people to help you nurture that. And
Yeah.
for me, I'm the kind of person that I like someone to drop the hammer and be mean to me because I'm not doing something a certain way. And so I know the teacher I need to go to do that because I trust them. So I
Yeah.
mean, if anything else, develop a relationship with the people in your mediumship circle, first off, that you trust. And then if you're choosing to study with people, find people you trust. Because first off, you got to trust spirit. You can't question that, and that's going to ebb and flow. You know, I still have I still wonder. I'm like, you guys got my back on this? You know, like, anybody hear me right now? And I know that they're always there. But yeah, trust. You have to trust. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust spirit, and you have to surround yourself with people that you trust in your journey.
I love it. You know what you remind me of, and I always say this to my students, is when we are in development circles, because I've been in them for years and so grateful for every teacher I've had because I've learned so much. But when you are in development circles, that's when everything goes sideways.
Oh,
And it's
totally.
supposed to go sideways. And then I tell my students, I go, but when you're going out professionally, they got your back. Spirit World's got your back. It's just when you're in training, they're going to push you hard and things are going to go sideways all the time because they did for me. But I always knew that's where the training's happening. It's like going to the gym. That's where the training happens. But when you go do the marathon, the muscles are built. Like you are safe and you're good. And that's where the confidence building happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to say, Erica, oh my goodness, I could talk to you for hours. I need to have you back again because there's so much we could talk about. You've been such an amazing guest, but I know we've gone over our time. And because I have like a million questions, but I want to keep you on for 3 hours. And I don't think you guys want to listen for 3 hours.
Well, you know, I don't want to listen to myself for 3 hours.
But I would love to have you back. And I'm going to have all of Erica's contact information. She has two websites, crowandcrone.ca and Headwater. Is it Headwater
Yeah,
Hypnotherapy?
Headwaters Hypnotherapy. So
Okay.
you can
.com.
find me on the internet. Yeah, you can find me. So Headwaters Hypnotherapy is the past life and regular clinical hypnotherapy.
Right.
So headwatershypnotherapy.com, and then crowandcrown.ca is where you will find more of the information around intuitive work and readings. And
Yes.
yeah, you can find me on Instagram.
And we will have her on Instagram. I'm going to have all her contact information. Don't forget to go check out her website and give her a follow. And if you guys have any questions like me, because I have a million questions, email her, book a
Email
session.
me. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for this time, Erica. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye.